Hello everyone, welcome to the 6-minute surgery for chemistry. So today we'll be going over chemistry, so I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any more questions, you can email team@6minute.co.uk. If you want to talk to me on WhatsApp, you can join the 6-minute group chats. So let's get a quick introduction of who I am. So I won't spend too much time on this because this part takes ages. If you want more details of who I am, then you can always go back to previous sessions and watch it. I'll try to speed run through this, because this takes ages. So my name is Martin Pereira. I'm an education consultant. So what that means is, essentially, I work with students from all around the world. So I kind of have to know a bit about all systems. So I help students apply to the UK, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, USA, Europe, etc. So yeah, I'm familiar with pretty much all the major education systems from all around the globe. So if you have any more questions that aren't really UK related, so if you're international students, can always ask them to me. So I keep in touch with many top schools in the UK. So these include Eton College, also. So I had some talks with Newham Collegiate Sixtham College, Oxford International College, etc. So yeah, I'm a partner for Jesus College at the University of Oxford. So we've made some webinars with them, and it was great. You can watch it on YouTube as well if you want. It's called ACE for BMAT. I help students getting to top unis around the globe, and I have a YouTube channel. I took 8 A-levels where I got A's and A stars. I do not recommend. My BMAT was 6.8958. Yes, I got a 9 in section 2. It took a while. I helped writing BMAT books and taught BMAT for thousands of hours, and I don't know why these slides should be thousands. The ship has sailed from last year. Okay, so this is my website, and this is essentially my email if you have any more questions. Okay, let's just keep going. So I run our /BMAT exams. So it's a Reddit community where we have thousands of students essentially visiting us every single month. So if you have any questions as well, you can essentially visit this. It's used by over 1 in 2 BMAT candidates, so I strongly suggest they check it out. Most of the questions that you will be asking in this webinar have already been answered on my frequently asked questions guide. So if you have any questions, feel free to check this guide out as well. So you go on our BMAT exam and you look at the frequently asked questions guides, and it has loads of things such as what's the BMAT, what are these so-called sections, how do I prepare, what are good resources to use, etc. Okay, so what you'll get away with, so concise info will answer your questions as well and good with some questions. So chemistry. Chemistry is one of the most complicated topics in the BMAT, I would say, because every single candidate takes chemistry, or at least most of them do. So the questions in the BMAT for chemistry tend to be a lot harder than, for example, physics or biology. So it's key that you really get good with chemistry, because a lot of students, they really struggle with this. And remember, guys, it is Avogadro's constant, not avocado's constant. Mr. Miller, if you ever see this, it is Avogadro's constant, not avocado. Right. So BMAT, it's a 2-hour paper, has 3 sections, and it costs 75 quid. You have section 1, 2, and 3. You should hopefully know quite a lot about this right now. It's multiple choice questions, except section 3, where you have an essay to write. Registration is open, and it closes essentially next week. So I would suggest that you hurry up if you haven't already done so. You should make sure that you have been registered. The BMAT will happen on the 18th of October, and you'll get your results on the 25th of November, so a bit after a month. And universities will be shortlisted from the 18th of November up to March 2023. So this will be usually improving scale like the latest interviews. Okay, so section 2 has 27 questions, and they have half an hour. So there's going to be our focus for today. So I won't dwell too much on this, but if you've been on previous sessions, you should know hopefully that if you're applying for Oxford, Cambridge, you need 6s and above. 6.5 and above is recommended for home students. International students want 7s and above. For Imperial and UCL, you shift that to the left once. For Leeds, Brighton, and well, Kiel, if you're international, or Lancaster, then you would shift them two to the left, essentially. So if it's 6.5 for Oxbridge, it would be a 6 for UCL and Imperial, and 5.5 for the remaining. A 5 would actually be fine, in all fairness, but just to be safe. For internationals, 7s for Oxbridge, 6.5s, 6.6 for Imperial and UCL, and 6s for the other BMAT universities would be a good estimation to have. Okay, so the biggest errors in chemistry are panicking. So people, they can't do a question and they try to do it and spend loads of time on it, and then they don't get the mark. Bad time management as well. So students, they really don't do questions in an efficient way. It's really not efficient at all. And also lack of planning as well. So as most candidates take a lot of chemistry, for questions we'll usually have traps, because most of you should be familiar with chemistry from AS or year 1. Year 2 if you're like a gap student as well. So someone asked me, what are the most common topics in the BMAT? And I've included this in the slides. So these topics will be the most common ones in your BMATs. So trends, it'll be group 1, group 2, group 7. You'll also have quantitative chemistry, such as calculations, qualitative, so it'll be tests, and organic chemistry. You have 7 questions, which means they have just over a minute per question, which is about 1 minute and 9 seconds. And these are the most common topics. So hopefully that answers your question. It's important that you prepare for the BMAT because, as you can appreciate, the number of applicants is increasing year by year. This year we had 29,000 applicants and we had about 6,000 re-applicants. So that number is not slowing down at all. So think of the BMAT as an opportunity, not a hurdle. And yeah, before I go any further to do some questions, do you have any questions? Anything they would like to add before I go and do some questions? Any question, guys? Feel free to ask away. All right, so raw score converts to scaled. Great question. So the scores vary each year. So I've made like some sort of very interesting graph analyzing this. And in some years, a 7, like there is like about, in some years, the same mark can be a 5, in others can be a 7. It is a very interesting one. So it will be like a normal distribution, essentially. They'll try to make your scores within a normal distribution most of the time. Yes, so quantitative and trends in organic, yes. The most effective way to revise, I would say 2 things. If you have someone which is good in the BMATs, then that's the most effective way, because so most of you don't know what to do in the BMAT, right? So you haven't really started to prepare, or you have, but your score might be stalling, essentially. Your score is not improving any further. That means that you should change your approach. And most of the time, those approaches are only available in two ways. Either you find them yourself, or you get a tutor who already knows those approaches and it helps you cut corners. So a tutor, I'm talking about a good tutor, which in all fairness, there aren't many, because the BMAT is taught very badly in schools and even by tutors. But if your tutor is good and he knows what he's doing, it can save you so much time. For example, I've covered all of chemistry for the BMAT in about 3 hours with my students. Other students take a lot longer to do that. When I mean 3 hours, I mean exam ready. And it sounds like a big stretch. However, at the end of the day, top schools will not trust me if I was not a good teacher. So for international students, will the thresholds always be higher? And if so, those not getting a high score result in the field application? Yes, that's correct. So there are quotas for international students. With COVID, this isn't that big of a problem because there are less international students from Europe. However, it's still a big problem, in my opinion. So if you don't get a good score, chances are you'll get rejected as international. You need good scores. 6 should be your minimum. Even the 6 is risky. And bear in mind, 6 for UK students is a safe score, even for Oxbridge interviews. So yeah. Any free ebooks or platforms that you could recommend for studying Section 2 concepts? Section 2 student knowledge guides. It's free, it's official, and it was written by Cambridge Assessment. If you have a tutor who has it, you can also use the CGP book for the BMAT. It's no longer available online, but if you know anyone that has it, then you could get it, I suppose. Right, I guess this should be it. So time to do some questions. So read the question first and then do the answer. What's the mass of diammonium hydrogen phosphates that is produced when 3.4 kilograms of ammonia is reacted with phosphoric acid, H3PO4, in excess with a yield of 80%? Okay. So ammonia. So 3.4 kilograms. So 3.4 times 1,000, so 3,400 grams over 17 grams equals moles. So 34 over 17, that's going to be 2, so it's going to be 200. So 2 times 100, so 200 moles of NH3. And they're asking for, so there's, so excess phosphoric acid, so we don't count this, we want this. So you do 200 times this, which is essentially going to be, okay, so 26400 grams, which is 26.4 kilograms. But remember, there's a yield of 80%. So you do this times 8 over 10. So let's move this up here because I have more space. 2.64 times 8. So it's going to be 16 plus 4.8 plus 0.32, which is 20.8 plus 0.32, which is going to be 21.12, which is around 21.1 kilograms. And if I check the answers, it's E. Oh yeah, that's correct. Oops. I forgot to divide the moles by 2. Oops. So yeah, there's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you divide the answer by 2, which should give you just divided by 2. So that's going to be, I just like to do these divisions. It's a lot nicer. Plus 0.5 plus 0.06, which is 10.566, which is 10.6 kilograms, which is B. So yeah, remember guys, 2-to-1 ratio, because I clearly did not remember. I got a bit too into this. I've done the question hundreds of times, so I might have gotten a bit cocky here. Okay, so any questions before we move on? You do not get a periodic table on the exam, no. Okay. Next question. Polymers. So you have this essentially. So as you might know, with polymerization, okay, so someone asked about previous question. Let me just go back. When this is excess, it's referring to phosphoric acid in excess. Phosphoric acid in excess. So hope that makes sense. Okay, so with this one, you should hopefully know that when you polymerize something, you essentially do this. So that's polymer reaction. So we take this as a methyl group, which it is. So we do the following. Remember, this is a methyl group. So CH3. And if we look at the answers, so first thing first, shouldn't be this, because you can't have a double bond. It can't be this, that's incorrect. There's a double bond, so it can't be that, so it's D. That makes sense. It matches perfectly with our structure. Okay. So, last question. So I want you guys to do this question as well. So I want you guys to get some practice. So let's go. Right, so any answers? Okay, let's look at the answer to this. So reactive is metals, from most reactive to least reactive. So are fizzes when added to hydrochloric acids? Okay. These precipitated when R reacts with an aqueous solution of compound Z. Okay. So that means that T should displace R in theory. So yeah, T is displaced from its aqueous salt by R. So T is less reactive than R. So therefore, R T. So X is the only one of these elements or these metals that occurs naturally on Earth uncombined with other elements. So it's the least reactive. So it's less reactive, essentially. And then we can infer that it's going to be Z, just from inference, because we have 4. So ZRTX, which is F. You don't even have to do the rest of it. You can get the answer just from doing this. But if you really want to check your answer, well, actually you will need this last one to make sure that Z is more reactive than R and T. So yeah. Z is only one of these metals manufactured commercially by electrolysis with one of its molten compounds, whereas R and T can be manufactured by heating the oxides. So it means that R and T are less reactive than Z because Z needs electrolysis. As you may know, aluminium needs electrolysis because it's more reactive than, say, iron, which can be used in the blast furnace, for example. So yeah, I take that back. You need the last one as well. That is correct. So carbon is more reactive than R and T, so Z must be more reactive. as Z is more reactive than carbon. So this question is asking you and testing you on your knowledge of the reactivity series. By the way, fun fact, it is not in the BMAT. It's not in the spec. So the section 2 Assumed Knowledge Guide says that you don't have to learn it. However, you do, because they ask you questions on electrolysis. So this is where having like a mentor helps, because it's one of the things like you don't need it. However, you will need the knowledge from it in order to answer what they're asking you for. So the way I describe it is the specification is not complete, because there are topics you have to learn which are not in the spec, but are still required to answer questions. So yeah, let's go to the resources part. So how can you prepare more? You can use my YouTube channel and r/BMAT exam. For more surgeries, you can also check out the WhatsApp, Discord, group chat as well, and the main pages. Some cheaper but paid BMAT books, BMAT Ninja, and 6-minute BMAT masterclasses. And more intensive but paid are also courses, tuition, and BMAT bundles. If you want some reviews or some frequently asked questions, guides, then they're all here as well. And yeah, Q&A time. What questions do you guys have? Let's go. Discord. Yes, I do. Let me just send you the links. Right, so that should be sorted now. Right, so I've sent that series of links in the chat, so you can just check them out. Right, so okay, so what else? More questions. Those replications, I'm not sure, I'll be honest. You should email team@6med.co.uk if you have questions about bursaries. Solubility series, I would say it's not needed, in my opinion, because from questions in the past, they're given to you. Right, so how do you revise for the BMAT? It's in the FAQs in that guide if you have questions. I've seen that link actually. Yeah, so you just have to learn GCSE content for all exam boards. So you can just use the section C as knowledge guides. Do you have extra paper to work out on? Yes, you do. Some centers give you one sheet, some give you tens, hundreds of sheets. How can you get better at mental maths? You can use just some tests or like some apps. I personally use an app on Android. It's called Quick Maths. I love it. It's really good. It's quite really good. You don't have to know the mechanisms. You just have to know the basic naming schemes and polymers, etc. So it shouldn't be that advanced. So it would be what you've learned at GCSE. They will not ask you for mechanisms and nucleophiles, electrophiles. That's too advanced for the test. Okay, which section did you find hardest? Which one do you spend the most time practicing? Section 1, because problem solving takes ages to complete. So essentially, I developed strategies on critical thinking to help me get the highest score possible. Bear in mind, I had a 6.8, and in that year, there was a lot of cheating because the test was online. So in reality, I would say my score would be higher. But of course, I would say that. But yeah, so there was a lot of cheating last year. So you might notice that the marks from 2020 and 2021 are inflated compared to previous years. That was because there was cheating in those exams. As it's on paper, hopefully it will not happen, but we never know. Chemistry assessments always the trick up their sleeves. So someone said they can't afford paid tutors and they want a tutor still. So you might find zero gravity. So this is like a widening access thing, and you can get linked with an Oxford tutor, and they would give you some sessions usually. So yeah, if you can't afford it, join Zero Gravity. Energetics topics comes up. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So yeah, you will need to learn energetics. So enthalpies. I would say that for some exam boards, the content can be A2. For example, in some exam boards, you don't go over kidneys in GCSE and A-level year 1. You'll need A-level year 2. So like someone says, yes, A has content for the most parts, but in some exam boards, even then it's not enough. That's why it's GCSE for all exam boards. It's just not really GCSE. It's more like things you've learned in the past 3 years of school. So. Right. Section 2 of knowledge guides is available on. I'll send you the link in a sec. Okay, so. Okay. What else? Someone said my score is 6.574A. Is this a competitive school for Oxford? No, you'll need the 9s and a 5A. 995A for Oxford. And even then, that's the minimum. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a pretty solid score if you can replicate it on your real application. No worries. So So we don't need to know the chemistry topics to an A-level extent. You do. For chemistry, I would say it's a bit more relevant because the chemistry is a bit more advanced in the BMAT. Like the questions are like AS style. So yes, you would kind of need to learn AS chemistry. What exactly can we study when writing BMATs? What do you mean writing BMATs? Are you talking about section 3? So everything that you need to learn for section 1 and 2 is on the website. For the section 2, as you know, guys. I've sent a link for the guides on the chat. So yes, you are meant to know about groups 1 to 18. So group 7 is actually group 17, group 8 is actually group 18 in the BMAT. So Samia, the easiest way is, well, there's some people do fit in different things. So some people just practice as they go along. Some people, they have tutors. Some people just essentially ask the teachers to help them. Some people just do it by themselves. So it really depends. You can have Anki flashcards if you want. Personally, I feel like the ages, especially you have like what, 3 weeks left. So I don't think it's going to be that efficient. There. What else do we have here? A lot of maths is not required, no. It'll be too advanced in a way. If I mess up my section 3 essay, can I ask for another sheet? No, you can't. You'll be stuck with that one, so be careful. You have to plan because they will not give you other sheets. It's just one A4 sheet and you can't write the whole page because it's like less than an A4 page. It's about 4/5 or 2/3 of an A4 page, like the total space. Okay, what else? Reward processor for section 3. Yeah, if you can get it, then go for it. Well, you can't find the topics that will come up in the exam, but you can find the section 2 knowledge guide, which you can find on the website. I would say that yes, the score should be lower, average scores. They should be by about 0.5 to a whole score, depending on how hard the exam is. I personally feel like they'll give you a really hard exam this year because, from my logic, last year they had inflated scores. There was lost confidence from the universities on, the whole testing system because Brighton and Sussex even changed their admissions process. So section 2 is worth twice now because of the incompetence of Cambridge assessments. So I think they will do this. They'll make the whole exam harder, and they want people to be less prepared to bring grades down. So that's my opinion. So yeah, I think the scores will be lower. You don't have to fill the whole page, but it's recommended. But yeah, go for quality over quantity. Quality is important in your essay. Yes, you need an intro for section 3. You do. Okay, so the outline, yes, it's going to be like an outline, like a summary. It's not like a conclusion, but I would say I recommend just rephrasing the conclusion. That's how I do it. And that got me 5 A's. So yeah. Does the acceptance rates vary between colleges for Oxford? Yes, it does. So University College or UNIF had like 7s average for this year. However, other colleges had like 5s. So there can be like a 2-score difference in some colleges. And while there is a point system, it's not perfect. So like, I would not rely on that system in order to give you an interview at other colleges, because remember, that system is not perfect. Right, so yes, there are maths and physics in BMAT. So we have biochem, physics, and maths. A-level physics year 1 is what I'd say. It's mostly A-level physics year 1, but it's also GCSE because it's the same thing. AS Bio, no, there is no AS Bio. It's just GCSE for all exam boards. Yes, you get rough paper to plan. Yes, the exam threshold changes every year. A good score for home students is 6, and good score for international is a 7. Anything below that is not like a guaranteed thing. Like if you have 6 for home students, I would say you can get interviewed pretty much everywhere, assuming that everything else in your application is fine. But yeah, the BMAT has like the biggest impacts on your application before interviews, and it even plays a role after interviews. So they can use your BMAT score to determine if they want you in the university. I've heard cases of universities looking at your UCAT score. They're like, the BMAT unis can see your UCAT score apparently. So I thought it was very interesting. Like I know someone in Oxford, they had a question on the UCATs. They were like, UCAT is very good, isn't it? How do you prepare? It was like a very random question. This was my friend. And she was like, she answered the question, but she had no clue how they knew her UCAT score. They had like her score on their hands, which is interesting because it was a BMAT uni. I don't know why that happened, but that's happened regardless. AS Maths and Physics. AS Maths, no. AS Physics, yes. Is there a greater emphasis on BMAT than problem solving for Oxford? Yes, there is. No, for personal statement, sorry. I see PS in problems because BMAT, I abbreviate problem solving to PS. So there is a greater emphasis on BMATs than personal statements for the Oxford shortlisting. Yes. So Oxford cares about your BMAT more than GCSEs this year because GCSEs will not be taken into account as much as in previous years because of central assessment grading curves. So yes, your BMAT should play about 70 to 80% of your application to Oxford, maybe even more if they change their minds, but 70, 80 is a good estimate. If I do just BMAT Ninja, will it be enough? No, because this is my opinion though. This has nothing to do with the quality. However, I would say that you should not rely on one resource. You should be using more than one resource. And also remember, some resources are starter resources. So they are not meant to get you 6s or 7s. They are meant to introduce you to the BMAT structure. So some resources are better for different things. So for example, some resources might be good to let you know about the test structure. Others will be good to bring your score. Others will be good to know essentially walkthroughs. So, like how do you approach a paper? So it really depends on what your goal is, what your strengths and weaknesses are. So is it enough? I don't know. It could be, but I would not rely on one resource only. Do you need to outline your for and against points in the intro for section 3? No, you don't. We will not be doing more questions though. No, you do not get marks taken off for being at an independent school. So I had many students from schools. So as I've said, I had students from Oxford International College, Cardiff Second College, Eton, Harrow, Westminster, etc. So those students, I even had some radiates before, and Putney High School, etc. So no, you don't get marks taken off, but you'll be disadvantaged because you go to an independent school. So because of widening access, state school students are preferred. So you will be required to have a better score than those at state school students. So if someone from a state school gets a 6 and they have a 6, they'll probably be taken with you. So I would advise to try a bit harder in your BMAT because of the contextual system. Mark to get 7.5, it should be about 28 in section 1, and it should be about 21 to 22 in section 2. This varies each year, but that is a good average. Okay, so what else do we have here? So there is AS maths and physics, but most people don't do physics A level, and I don't do maths A level, so you just have to cover it, unfortunately. Everyone is the same position, well, most. So you are still required to learn them. They do not care if you haven't covered it. That is your responsibility. I'll be honest, I got a 9 in section 2, and I've helped students getting 9 in section 1 and section 2. Personally, we do not use more than the 3 resources. You can get 9s, the maximum possible score, which is like top 1, top 2 worldwide, with just the 3 past papers. You just know how to use them. I did not have a tutor. I do not use many resources, but I still got a 9. And I help students getting 9s with just the 3 past papers. So it's not about the resource itself, it's about how you use it. Okay, so I've prepared for about, so I had students preparing for 2 to 3 weeks. Some of them have been preparing for like 3 months, and they get at least 6s. So I had the students who I took about 2 to 3 weeks ago. He was having 4s, now he's getting 6s, and he's still improving. So like, it's never too late to prepare for the BMAT. I've also had students starting in June, and they are now getting 8s. It sounds like, you know, it's made up, but I promise you it's not. It's just incredible how much you can re-improve if you have the right guidance. It is really interesting. Leeds Gateway Medicine. I would say high 4s should be fine, but 5s are recommended. High 4s should be fine, but 5s, yeah, that should be fine for medicine at Leeds. But Leeds usually ask for 5s though, so do bear that in mind that 5s, or even high 5s, as in the score, not, you know, high 5 literally, should be the score they should be getting. So you should be aiming for 5s for Leeds. How can you revise from past papers? Well, if you know the strategies, then, like, and this is why I say tuition can be very useful. If you know the strategies, and if you already know the content, then you don't have to look at questions and think, how do I know that? How do I do this? You just have to do the questions. Like, you just have to apply what you've learned. 4.5 in your essay, that's definitely more than good enough for Leeds, yes. Brighton Sussex, you might want high 4s, low 5s. If high 5s do help though. So yeah, high 5s are recommended for BSMS. 4 should be fine, but 5 should be your goal, not 4s. At least. So 5s, although 4s are like 50-50. Sometimes it happens, sometimes you get shortlisted, sometimes you don't. Depends on the year. How do you grade your own essays? Well, you can ask, if your school has a philosophy teacher, then I recommend they give that to them. So I repeat, if your school has a philosophy teacher, so if you do pre-U or you do some honors program or some Oxbridge cohorts, you can give your essays to that person. So I work with a school in the UAE, and essentially what I do is students, they have like this meeting, have like some meetings, and they can talk to me anytime, and they can just send me some essays to mark. So yeah, your school should have that if they are a good school. I would assume that at least. So yeah. Yeah, you can also send to someone as well. Well, you don't have to answer a specific question. Don't go for the hardest question. Go for the one that you can answer best. So you don't pick philosophy because it's harder. Pick the question which you think you can answer better. Do you think it's a good idea to give your essay to an English teacher? Possibly it is, but remember, they are not qualified to mark this. So yeah, just remember that. You can do it, but it's not recommended. Right, it's Q&A time. So is it AS content for that section? Yes, there is AS content for chemistry. Certain question type that has been answered. So do good GCSEs give your application an advantage this year? Not really, no. They could essentially be used as a last resort, but apart from that, no, because grade inflation. So the BMAT should play the biggest role in your application. Well, they should balance out. So, for example, if one was high, the other one was low, they should still be fine because they look at both sections. But remember, at Imperial, they have cutoffs for each section. So let's say you get a 9 in section 2 and a 3 in section 1. In theory, you'd be rejected because they want like high 5s or low 5 in section 1. So any more questions, guys? Well, you already have A star AA. So like you should be fine for Oxford's. Remember, Oxford's we'll look at your GCSEs and your BMATs. This year it will be more BMATs because of grade inflation. So if you want to get in Oxford's, get high 6s, even low 7s. That should pretty much secure an interview. So I was looking at this the other day, and if you get 7, 3.5A, you pretty much have a 100% chance of getting shortlisted for Oxford. Oxford does not care if you have 4 or more A levels. They only look at 3. If you have A star AA, they will not give you an advantage because the A levels are used as a cutoff measure. Like if you meet the requirements, then it should be fine. So yeah, they will not look at it beyond. But Canada have A star AA. If you do, good. You'll be considered. For international students, depends on the university. So Oxford and Cambridge, you want 7s. Cambridge cares about the BMATs even more than Oxford, I would say, because they pretty much use it. They look at the whole application in a way, but with Oxford's, they have like a computer. But with Cambridge, they have like cutoffs. So like they look at your BMATs quite a lot as well. Yes, so it's okay to use examples that are not related to the UK. So I had some students from Hong Kong who were talking about the Hong Kong system in the section 3. However, with that being said, I still think you should, well, talk about the NHS regardless. 8 and 9s above A stars. There is no difference at Oxford. For UCL and Imperial, you want high 6s for internationals, low 6s for home students. If you have weak GCSEs, that will not matter as much this year. Remember, your BMAT will essentially make the admission students overlook your GCSEs. So remember, focus on your BMATs. If you really love Oxford, then go for it. That's my advice, because you'll always be wondering, what if I got in? What if I applied? So you might as well do it. If you love it, do it. But remember, make sure that your application is safe as well. Risk management is crucial. Yes, it does. Apply for internationals as well. But remember, international students will need a much higher score. And remember, you'll need top 3% of candidates to have a good chance of getting into the UK as international students. So sevens are very hard. And remember, you guys might be getting 7s and 6s in practice, right? You guys are getting 6s and 7s in practice, hopefully. Some of you might be getting 5s and 4s, but that's fine. But remember, you will perform worse in your real exam because of nerves. You might get nervous, because it's such a high stake test that you might be stressed. And there's other factors that might affect your performance. So remember, if you're getting 7s now in practice, you are still not safe as an international student because you will need to manage that risk. And you have to ensure you get 7s as an international student. 6s are fine, don't get me wrong, but remember, you don't want to be panicking, will I get interviewed, will I not get an interview? What if you got shortlisted, what if you got waitlisted? It's such a pain that it's not worth going through. So yeah, the scores I'm giving you are scores that I think and have been proved by data that should give you pretty much guaranteed chances of getting an interview. There are exceptions, of course, but remember, we're looking at the rule rather than the exception. Yes, there are a couple of unis that look at AAB. There are actually 3 of them. So I can't remember from the top of my head. I think it's Buckingham, UCLAN, and there is another one which I can't recall. So yeah, that should be it. You can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge for undergrads. If you are a postgraduate student, then you can. So if you are applying to Oxbridge and yet you just left school, then you can't. But if you have a degree, then you can do it. So I have one student. He's from Hong Kong, I believe. Yeah, he is. And he's a postgrad student. And he's applying for Oxford's, Cambridge, and UCL. So yeah, it's possible if you have a degree. If you don't have a degree, then it's not possible. Yes, there are more webinars in section 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Right, so what percentage would be considered an A star? What would be considered an A? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are you talking about, because you might have international qualifications? So it really depends on which system you do. So for example, I had students doing the HKDSE, the Hong Kong diploma for secondary education. I had students doing the CBSE from India. I had students doing the O levels from Singapore. I had students doing the NM from Brazil, APs from the USA, the IB, pre-use. We had Le Bac from France. So it really depends on your education system. So what else we have here? Sheffield's does if you do a medical EPQ, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure on the UK University at the moment. It's worth double checking. No worries. Right, so we have no further questions. So I'm going to end the webinar. Any last minute questions, guys, before I end the webinar? Okay, so someone said they want to go to Cambridge because it's easier than Oxford. I can assure you it's the exact same difficulty. Whoever said that to you is lying. It's easier to get shortlisted at Cambridge. It's harder to get an offer at Oxford because Oxford essentially has less. So it's harder to get an interview at Oxford, but it's harder to get an offer at Cambridge because at Cambridge there are 5 people interviewed per place, whereas in Oxford it's 3-1. So 3 people at Oxford get interviews for each place, whereas at Cambridge is 5. Imperial is, while it's not as competitive as Cambridge, it's close enough. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like it comes down to that very small range of scores. They will be looking at your baccalaureate, but BMAT mostly. The BMAT is how they will compare you to other candidates in the UK and overseas. So as long as you get like 80-90% in your baccalaureates from Morocco, then you should be fine. So 80-90% is recommended. However, the BMATs will make or break your application. Are UCL and Imperial as competitive as each other? Yes, they are. Great. So, KCL is a UK university. You can't really compare it to being uni in a way. It's like apples and oranges. It's more than enough. So 3 weeks is more than enough. It depends on how you revise. So, for example, if you have no guidance and you don't know how to prepare and you're just learning the science now, it's going to be tough. If you have someone to guide you, then it's possible. They're both possible, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a lot harder, essentially. You might have neglect your A-levels for a while, which I suppose is worth it in the long term, but yeah. So it's more than enough, but it depends on who's helping you and what are you doing to get the score that you need. How many mocks did I do? What do you mean? What do you mean, how many mocks have I done? Well, I'll be honest. I'll tell you why I told my students. I told them, do as many papers as you can. Don't stop. So I gave them a question bank with about 8,000 questions, multiple choice for biochem and physics. Yes, 8,000, not including the BMATs and NSAA, like 8,000 questions that they've never seen before. So those are not questions from the NSAA, from the BMATs, the IMATs. They're questions from other exams that I was given from like international contacts. So yeah. So on top of like all the papers that they've done for the BMATs, natural sciences, TSA, etc., they've been given 8,000 questions on top of that to do. So they're literally still prepping. They've started preparing in June, and they are still going. Remember, those will be like the top candidates because they've been preparing so early, and they have someone who essentially knows the stuff quite well. Yes, I prepared by using past papers. That's how I got my 9s. My students, they prepared by using past papers, my resources, and my strategies. So it's not too different. I just know how to make the most out of past papers. And I think that's a skill in itself. Remember, guys, someone with a high score is someone with a high score. However, remember, what grade did you guys get at GCSE for English language? You guys remember, what grade did you have? This is my best example. What were your grades in GCSE for English language? Some people say 9s, some 7s, some 8s. Do you think you can help someone to get your grades? Do you guys think you're qualified? So would you be comfortable going into the classroom and teaching everyone there to get a good score? Some people say yes, some people say no. I would say no, you're not. Teaching is more than just knowing the content. It's the exam strategy. So remember, someone can get into Oxford or Cambridge. They can get a good score. That does not mean that they'll be a good teacher. that doesn't mean that they can help together. So remember this, it's very important. So be careful on, essentially, be careful with who is helping you, is my advice. Because you can be good at testing, you can be good at doing tests, but that does not mean that you are a good teacher or a good tutor. So yeah. On that note, I'm going to end the webinar. So I hope you guys found it useful. If you have more questions, you know essentially what to do. So that's my contact and the contact of 6med. So thank you guys for attending, and I'll stop sharing my screen. So yeah, goodbye.